Yo, this year has been fantastic for gaming. Dropped a lot of bangers and dropped a lot of doo-doo that was scraped off the floor to fill Sony's pockets. I'm sorry you had to see that. As an adult, it's hard to play everything, especially the shit that came out this year. This list is going to contain any single player games I have played this year, so not just games from 2024. There will be a lot of older games on this list as well, especially a certain franchise. I'm going to be ranking these games based on gameplay, OST, and story. Difficulty and time clock is just a bonus unless it's piss easy. I'm looking to see if the gameplay loop is fun. I'm big on spectacle and action, and I like mini character action games. This genre name sucks. I also like slow and strategic gameplay styles like turn-based RPGs. For the story, I'm just looking for good characters, a sense of mystery, and how intrigued or bored I am. Music can make or break a game in my opinion. If the music is fine, it does its job and fills the role as background noise. If the music is good, it can really elevate the experience I've had. Because you'll see me in the YouTube comments yapping about how much a corny song about rolling around as a blue ball changed my life. I'm not joking. Anyways, I know it's way past due to do this video for the algorithm, but it is what it is. My friend Pedro is a spectacle run and gun with an emphasis on fucking diabetes. With an emphasis on slowing time and using the environment. Stylish flips and spins to kill your enemies. The game has everything you could want from a Matrix game on acid. You can use skateboards, basketballs, and even your enemies' heads to pull off some sick stunts. Slowing time makes the game feel like the Matrix, but you can also just disregard the mechanic and use a lot of precision and timing. The story is pretty much the equivalent of a stoner cartoon you'll see on Adult Swim or something like Regular Show. You follow a banana named Pedro, and he kidnaps you out of a basement and basically tells you to go on a murder spree. A lot of goofy points happen, and it's a fun story nonetheless, but it doesn't feel as satirical as it was going for. The OST is pretty decent. It has a lot of bangers in it, and it has a lot of cyberpunk and drum and bass elements. The difficulty is a ranking system with how well you perform your stunts and how creative your kills can be. Overall, it's a really fun game to play in an afternoon or evening. Only takes about 5 hours to complete, but you will still not master it in that time. The skill ceiling is pretty high.
Persona.
As a Persona 5 fan who has beaten the game not one, not two, but 3 times, I promise you, I do have a life. I only played half of 3 and half of 4. I'm not sure why I stopped playing 4, and 3 I just couldn't do it with the no control of the party members. Every single time they would just use fire on a resistant fire boss, and it was just driving me insane. But being able to control your party members in this game was a fucking godsend. The story follows an emo kid with a stand who stumbles upon a world of remote stands. Not really. And a bunch of his friends have stands too. But that's most Persona games anyways. What sets this game apart is the sense of mystery and with almost no focus on the plot, making this game way too long in my humble opinion. I do like the themes of living life to the fullest and death is inevitable, but playing this game kind of felt like it was contradicted by the 90 plus hours of gameplay. I say this as a person who's played Persona 5 with like 300 plus hours. With this remake, you feel much more close to your comrades than the original, because you can actually hang out with them outside of the dungeons, really making the bonds make more sense. Though you might miss some of the friend events because you decided to go talk to a divorced monk in the club. Damn, this shit was sad. The main gimmick of this game is ascending a tower, and that tower is basically just a huge dungeon. And you basically go up multiple floors every event as in like every deadline. And outside of the deadlines, you hang out with your friends and strangers. Yeah, it's not teaching teens some good advice, is it? With the gameplay change of being able to control your party members and use the baton pass like in Persona 5, the game was a lot of fun. I respect the decision to do the strategic tactics and everything with FES, but this is just so much better and just caters to everyone. Unlike old RPGs, you can actually pick and choose your encounter rate. You can either run away or run towards them. And you don't have to go into an empty room and then boom, there's an enemy. You need to strike weaknesses in this game. If you don't strike them, you're probably not going to get past these mini bosses. The mini bosses will pull you by your ball skin and slap you on the taint. It is fun and it's really challenging. With the addition of Reload, they actually added some red room dungeons. I forgot what they're actually called. And these will literally pull your ball skin even further. But they actually give you pretty good rewards. They give you a lot of skins for your characters. And as someone who loves customization, this is just for me. This OST is absolutely phenomenal with the remixes. Though I do miss the OG Dorm Bop. The ambush theme is just the right amount of hype I need when I shoot myself in the head. Most of the OST is rap and rock, and a little bit of jazz. If you don't like rap, you're gonna hate most of this game because 90% of the game is the battle theme, and it's a fucking bop. Overall, it's a really good RPG, and I just wish it had a lot more focus on the narrative than the game being that long. This colorful cast of characters really suit the game themes of death.
Disturbing the peace, look into my eyes. Now tell me the things you were laughing about behind my back. It doesn't seem like it will last all my life. When stars smile the moon, and the hell looks in your eyes, just dialing your number, say two prayers to last you, praying my heart will reach you.
I played Zero Gravity as a kid and it was cool, but I don't remember having that much fun with the gameplay. Though I heard from the community that the first entry in the franchise is completely different with much more depth. I've dusted off the old PS2 and went straight to eBay to cop it, and I gotta say, it was well worth it. Sonic racing in the car just doesn't work in my opinion. Giving him a hoverboard with Tony Hawk type movement was genius. It really differentiated from all the mascot racing games at the time. And it just fit Sonic's movement and general aesthetic of too cool for school way more than a fucking car. Story is whatever. It's cool to be introduced to a new team consisting of everyone's fan favorite voice crack.
Feel the power of Babylon!
And the other Babylons have some pretty funny chemistry when they're against the boys and Amy. The plot is literally Eggman wants to have a Grand Prix for a race, and the prize is a GameCube 2. Wait, no, it's a Cube Key. That's all you really get from knowing it. And what makes it fun is the characters' interactions. Like these two meatheads bumping heads. Not those heads. The story is incredibly short, clocking at 5 hours for both stories together, but there is missions and side content to complete, which is pretty fun too. This is a racing game first, and an SSX tricky game second. To keep going fast, you gotta do tricks and your special abilities because there's types of characters in this game like in Sonic Heroes with power, speed, flight, and depending on what class you are, you can partake in different shortcuts.
Throughout this game, if you're not doing tricks and keeping up your speed with your boost, you might actually have to stop and get gas, aka air, which sounds like a bad mechanic, but it's actually really interesting the way they did it, and it forces you to be more careful. I will say this game does not hold your hand. I had to read the manual for mine, but if you don't have a copy of that, just watch a YouTube video and explain all the mechanics for you. Throughout the story, you unlock more characters like Shadow and Eggman, and it allows for more variety in your gameplay because they give you bikes and skates and different hoverboards for different gameplay styles. It's really cool. If you have the opportunity to play split screen, this game's a lot of fun with friends, but the other player might have some trouble getting used to controls and everything because the game's not very lenient on how to play. So have fun explaining the mechanics. This is an awesome soundtrack with a use of jungle and drum and bass influences. However, it's very short and a reuse of level themes happens repeatedly. I just wish it was a little longer. Overall, if you want to play a Tony Hawk fucking racing game, then this game is truly for you. And especially if you like the anime Air Gear.
Following The Great Ghost Runner, they released a sequel, and it was so hard you cannot even play it on a fucking controller. So I ended up buying it on Steam. I played the first one on PS4, and it was fun, but this game is definitely meant for mouse and keyboard. As a Genji main of 3 years on Overwatch, I don't play that shit anymore though. This is basically just playing him in his ult form at all times. But you need to be careful with your approaches because you can literally get one-shotted at any time. The story is really flat and boring, and honestly, I can't remember much what happened. And yeah, I think the only thing I remember is that there's an evil AI and you're trying to stop him. But unlike in the first game, Jack actually has friends. So, congrats Jack, you got some friends. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I kinda just fell asleep during most of the dialogue. I just wanted to play the game. Most of the story is told to you through dialogue while you're playing the game, and the game's hard enough as it is, and I cannot focus on someone yapping in my ear. So I ended up just turning the dialogue off through most of the game because it was just annoying. So this is pretty much the gameplay you want if you want to be a parkour ninja that can do pretty much anything but get shot twice. You'll be wall climbing, deflecting, stopping time, dashing, and shooting with any order you want. The original Ghost Runner felt like it was limited in creativity with having you approach certain enemy rooms, but in here, you can really do any style and make it work. And this game is tough. The trial and error you have to go through because of the sheer speed you are going at as a glass cannon is super stressful in a good way. And you will die a lot, especially if you're trying to perfect your run.
If you really want to get good, leave some time to breathe. Once you're in a flow state, you feel like you can swing your blade so fast, you can cut your homie's nasty fart from South Carolina after he drank a Four Loko. Yes, I'm talking about you. This game has a lot of replayability, especially when you want to master the room. And there's even an option for speedrunning. This game was meant for speedrunning. The OST is pretty decent. It's got some cyberpunk bops, but a lot of the levels just sound like background noise. But there's definitely some bangers in there, for sure. You can definitely hear the Overall, a very replayable game with a fun sense of difficulty. I can't tell you how nice it felt when you pull off a clean run or a single level without a death or mistake. It's only flow. Too bad I suck. The classic, most popular Final Fantasy did not disappoint. As someone who is very fond of the remake, I wanted to play the original all the way through before playing Rebirth. And it's not on the list. I did not finish it. Fuck you, Chadley. There's a reason our spiky blonde boy is one of the most influential video game mascots of all time. And it shows in this game. You just really see him grow as a character throughout the whole story. The story follows our protagonist Cloud and his ragtag group of terrorists going around the world couch surfing, chasing our antagonist Sephiroth, who haunts Cloud in all of his memories. You are labeled a terrorist because you are trying to take down this greedy corporation called Shinra, who has monopolized all energy sources, including materia, which is the fossil fuels of this world, that also doubles as a magic source. This game is very political, by the way. Kind of reflects what's going on in the world right now. The cast feels like it's got a lot of good chemistry, except for maybe the late game characters. And I just really like the relationships and dynamics they have. Like Barret and Red just getting split off with each other every single time, anytime there's a party split. I don't know, it's just funny to me. The materia system lets you learn skills if you have these little shiny old magic balls. You equip them to boost your stats, add abilities, some change your gameplay completely, and learn spells. You can even put these balls on Cat Sif, because he doesn't have any. Or you could go wild and really put your balls on Tifa. Most of the characters kind of just play the same because of the materia system. The only differences are their ultimates or limit abilities. But in the story-wise, they do not feel the same at all. They have a lot of complex emotions and depth. Honestly, my only complaint with the gameplay is it's a little too easy. I was under-leveled for pretty much the whole playthrough. Didn't have to grind at all, and it was a piece of cake. I beat the final boss on a first try. That never happens for me. The game's also got some really fun minigames, like feeding nuts to this Moogle to make sure he doesn't get so fat that he can't fly. I thought that shit was hilarious. The OST is really good at painting the environment of the settings, which is actually a reason for liking no voice acting for most JRPGs, because the music is just so good. You're going to notice this a lot with Final Fantasy games in particular for me, because Uematsu is just probably my favorite composer ever now. This game took me around 45 hours to complete, and I tried to do a lot of side content, so if you're just beelining the story, it'd probably take you like 35. Overall, this is an amazing classic JRPG that definitely lives up to the hype. If you are one of the few people that haven't checked it out like me, then I highly recommend it. See, I'm not biased. Everything I could have wanted from a Dream Sonic game, even though this is kinda cheating because it's only counting half the game because I'm not playing Sonic Generations for the 42nd time of my life. But Shadow's campaign is just fucking awesome, man. Like, seriously. Like, honestly, there's no misses in this game. It's just 3 hours of fucking perfection, in my opinion at least. But if you add Sonic's campaign as well, it's about adding 6 hours, so the game's about 10 hours long. Which is kinda on the shorter side, but Sonic games are literally made for replayability, so keep playing the same levels like a good boy or girl and master it. The story follows Shadow being sucked into where Squidward lost his shit, the White Void, with all of his stages from the past being literally right behind him. He then encounters Maria, his best and only friend, and Gerald, basically his daddy. Spoilers for a game that's 20 years old, by the way. Big Daddy Black Doom is a pretty good villain, and as you go through the story, you get blessed with abilities from him, which kind of goes against the point of going against him, doesn't it? But I digress. Not gonna lie, the story's the first time Shadow has been written well in 19 years. Kirk Thornton is a great voice actor for Shadow. The perfect amount of edge, but not boom edge. This gameplay is literally perfect high-speed platforming with a lot of multiple pathways and some crazy speedrunning tech that isn't hard to do. Bro is really dabbing in 2024. There's almost nothing I would change about it besides maybe a lot more levels because 6 is good length, but I think 2 more levels would have been more suffice. The levels aren't too short like Sonic Forces and they're not too long like Sonic Heroes, they're just right. And I hope they add more DLC levels in the future besides the movie one. The soundtrack is pretty good, but for Sonic standards, it's not that amazing because I wish he leaned more into the rock influence or the metalcore influence from Frontiers instead of the dubstep and EDM, but it's still great. Bring back June's guitars. Overall, I think this is a perfect introduction into the Sonic series for anyone wanting to get into a good Sonic game. However, as a Sonic fan, you will learn to appreciate the bad ones for their potential. 2 great games with a lot of replayability for $40 is not bad at all. I really like Radical Highway. You're about to hate me so much for this, but it's my list. This game is phenomenal. While the gameplay can be a little irritating and hard to get into, it's okay because everything else it does right. The world building, the story, the characters, and the motivations. Also, this final boss kicked my ass. The story follows Squall, an edgy teen who you think listens to classic Fall Out Boy 24/7, but he's really so much more than that. And he starts from zero to hero because this game really develops him into one of my favorite MCs. He really is something special, but you have to stick with the game. Along with his likable weird-ass classmates and his badass, hot-ass teacher, the school setting is actually pretty interesting because it's like a military school. Kind of similar to most anime have you battling instead of doing school activities. And the plot is to stop this evil bad sorceress, which sounds generic, but she's got some twists and curves. Literally. And the story relies heavily on a romance plot, so if you're asexual, don't play this game. The romance between Squall and this girl named Renoa, who first seems clingy and annoying or forced, but then you start to realize how well they fit. Sometimes having a crush is kind of just meaningless, but you're just drawn to each other by fate. Young dumb love, and I'm a sucker for this type of shit. Being a hopeless romantic at age 30 really takes a toll on a man. The story is very non-linear with some incoherent storytelling, which can be a terrible thing, but it just works here and scratches my fucked up mind just right. Like you really never know what's going to happen next. Alright, that might have been a lot of talk for a story. Not a lot of games got this treatment. Whoops! I really recommend, if you're not going to play the game, just watch a playthrough. I really recommend watching Sea Dog's playthrough, which I watched because I don't have a lot of friends that play this type of games. The gameplay is a mixed bag. It's a simple turn-based system with a huge gimmick on magic and abilities. The junction system is insanely complicated to where it takes 10-minute tutorial on how to use it, which ultimately sucks on paper, but it allows for you to get really OP really fast, so technically you are here just for the story. By the way, the difficulty is scaled, so do not grind your levels, grind your junctions instead. I'm personally not going to explain the junction system, besides magic is turned into items, and you equip stands to put those items on your stats. Listen, it's complicated, because I don't even think I'll even be able to do it justice. Just watch a 5-minute to 10-minute video on YouTube on how to do it, and scroll through TikTok during the game tutorials. That's what I did. Don't even get me started on the final boss. Fun mechanics, but holy fuck, this shit was nut-crushing difficulty. I literally had to grind this like I was grinding at the gym for my first badminton tournament. I'm talking weighted wristbands, weighted pants, a pulley holding weight for a maximum gamer position, and a 100-pound dumbbell on my dick. And that still wasn't enough. I think I retried this boss 43 times in the total of past 3 days it took me. But then I got that final hit on 1 HP. It was the most accomplished I've ever felt in a video game, ever. I felt free. This soundtrack is absolutely fucking phenomenal. This is my favorite soundtrack of the entire franchise, and it's actually the reason Nobuo Uematsu is in my fucking Spotify Wrapped. When I hear the themes with no context, I know what part of the game I am in. That's how good the soundtrack is at storytelling itself. The environment tracks have a sense of mystery that really shrouds the whole game. The battle themes have a military flair for the drums and percussion that makes you feel like a true soldier marching into battle. I unironically listen to this shit at work, and everyone that hears it on my magnetic speaker looks at me weird, and I just shrug and tell them they have no taste. The soundtrack makes me feel nostalgic for this game, and I was only 3 months old when this game came out, and I just played it last year, not when I was a kid. Overall, this would be my favorite in the series if the gameplay was as good as the next entry on the list. I'm tired of absorbing my enemies like Cell's first form, but this story is really something special to me, and it opened my eyes to creative writing and gaming as a whole. No surprise to this one. It's regarded as the best Final Fantasy. This is where Final Fantasy really found its footing. A phenomenal story, an interesting dynamic where you don't even know who the main character is. What other series has ever done that? To this day, people are still trying to debate if it's Terra or Celeste. Yes, Terra is on the front cover, but Celeste literally has more screen time. But we already know who the main character is. It's Sabin the Giga Chad. The story follows 14 playable characters, and they all get a lot of screen time, charm, and many character arcs, with a few getting some pretty major ones. This game was ahead of its time when it came to subjects it tackled. If this game came out this year, half of the shit would be censored, especially if Sony had anything to do with it. The story starts with a conflict with an empire that is power hungry and wants to take over the world and enslave a magical race known as Espers. But some guy who looks like Hisoka with a Winifred foul beak says, nah, I want that power more. So he decides to perform almost every heinous crime you can think of. He's as nihilistic as you can get, but he's much more deeper than evil to be evil with no spoilers. That's why I think he's the best villain in the series, even more than Sephiroth. With this many characters, it makes the world feel huge, because you won't always be with your party. It will be split into different scenarios with a bunch of combinations of interactions between the characters. Gameplay is a perfect simple JRPG with no bullshit go fish cards or easy boss battles. You have to think pretty hard, and the strategy can get a little grueling, and that's exactly what I like. Make sure you get the Pixel Remaster and not this weird Steam version where the game looks like I took an anvil to a crayon and then threw it on paper and then stomped on it for good measure. The way to learn spells in this game is by equipping a stand to your character and learning their moves. Once you master it, if you can keep those moves, very fucking simple. Every party member is different, and it really makes you settle on these battles in the late game. Make sure you level up every character because you're going to need it. Also, don't forget to use Blitz when you encounter a boss in a spooky forest. It's rad. I don't normally shout out my favorite characters, but since there's so many, I've got to go with Terra, Sabin, Celeste, and Shadow. They all have really interesting arcs and stories. The soundtrack is absolutely beautiful, and for the 7th time, phenomenal. Any adjective you can think of. Soothing is another one. There are 2 versions, the original and the Pixel Remaster, which has real instrument sounds that aren't compressed. But I can't really pick a favorite because the fact that they made the soundtrack with the compressed audio says something about how talented our GOAT Nobu Uematsu is. I'm not gonna lie, I've cried so many times to this soundtrack. I'm not even joking, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I just love video game composition so much. This soundtrack made me get on my best friend's piano and try to play Terra's theme. I didn't get past the first 10 seconds because I was trying to do the percussion with my left hand at the same time as doing the melody. Piano's hard, man. Overall, this is probably the best JRPG I've ever played. Everything about it is damn near perfect. You may think I'm overhyping this game, but honestly, it is what it is. Now this is absolutely the game for me. Let's check off everything I like. Guitars, check. Rock and music in general, check. Cell shaded graffiti and style in general, check. Stylish action game combat, check. Baddie with red hair, check. With a Scottish accent to boot, check.
I take pride in my work.
This is a rhythm action game, so pretend Guitar Hero Devil May Cry had a baby and a dash of Jet Set Radio. The story follows me, the rockstar poser, Chai, who does the fusion dance with his MP3 player and gains the ability to be the beat and see the world as the beat. Not you. I'm not joking. The UI is jamming. Chai, who is our lovable dumbass who wants to become a rockstar and goes into a technology company to get a new limb because he was battling his friend on Jerkmate. He beats so hard that he's not beating the allegations and becomes the beat. Stop it. He is labeled as a defect and has a 1 billion berry bounty on his head. So he rounds up a ragtag team of comrades and goes against the corporate greed of this corporation on some real punk shit, painting pictures of each director for each part of the company as a piece of shit and the unfairness of how the employees at this company are treated. The villain Kale Salad, the CEO of this corporation, is played by a narcissistic, egotistical tyrant, and he is almost exactly like Handsome Jack, but less handsome and less dressing. I love this group of characters so much, they really start to feel like a family, similar to the Straw Hats at some point. The story is actually entertaining and funny as shit, and actually has some good character development for such a short game. The game's only about 10 hours. Attack to the beat, do everything to the beat. Literally, you can dash to the beat and it adds cymbals to the hits of the song. Seriously, it's DMC, but attack with the rhythm of the music going on in the background. And when you do, you actually add the notes from the guitar into the song. And when you really get going, you may add some vocals. This shit is fucking amazing. This is generally genius gameplay design. All we really need is a Doom-like rhythm game. Oh, wait. If you really suck at fighting the beat, you can literally put on an OSU indicator on your screen that will tell you exactly when to mash. The entire environment, your HUD, the enemies you are fighting, even Chai himself is always moving to the beat. It's beautiful synchronization. It's got style and a ranking system. Two things I absolutely love as a DMC and Sonic fan. By the way, there's customization and it's pretty damn good. I've made some real fire fits with them. There's lots of different challenge modes that they're beating the game as well, and I suck at all of them. As someone who plays guitar, I still have problems finding the beat. What can I say? This soundtrack is bumpin'. While it may not be beautiful, it's punk as fuck. Heavy guitar and drums with some bumping bass in the background, and when you add in the lead guitar from your combos, you're really working for some kick-ass music. You earned that shit. Don't let the guitar get all the credit though, because those bass lines were actually catching me off guard. There's also licensed music in here for a lot of the boss battles, and it fits perfectly. And also, if you're a streamer, they have a streaming friendly straight up OST to just replace all the licensed music. That is something I've yet to see a company do, and still yet to see anyone else do. I'm so glad they got bought by Krafton. Overall, this is a kick-ass game for anyone that loves rock music, DMC combat, or just rhythm in general. Comes with a heartwarming and funny story, likable characters, and just plain video game fun. Games do not feel like this anymore. Unfortunately, I can't do the OST justice because you need to play the game yourself, because the YouTube and Spotify versions don't have the added lead guitars and vocals and everything that happens when you're in the middle of a combo. So, sorry about that. Stellar but laid. This game is 97% hell yeah and 3% but. This action game is mixed with some Souls-like attributes is what video games were missing. Beautiful scenery, stylish combos with a baddie's hair clip, and give her an arsenal of guns as well. The story is very much like Nier, and I hate to draw comparisons, but it's true. The soundtrack is even composed by Keiichi Okabe's music company, and it captures the essence of Nier with Korean vocals. The story follows the angel, or the angle. Okay, sorry, I'm done with these stupid ass jokes. She's on a mission to take out the Alpha Naytibas, which are monsters that look like bugs mixed with other suggestive parts. Not gonna lie, they look cool, like straight out of a Souls monster designer. Humanity has been completely eradicated from these Naytibas, and throughout the story, you start to learn what happened in between now and then. It really edges you on, and I encourage you to read all the little notes for tiny pieces of lore, because the world is really fascinating, at least in my opinion. A lot of people don't think the lore is that deep. You meet Adam and Lily. Lily is a fun character with some good development. Adam's delivery is so bad, I always slump every time he opened his mouth. That's literally my only flaw with the game, and he has such little screen time, it doesn't really matter. Throughout the game, you hear of this god called the Mother Spear, which is essentially a religion to these androids. It has an intriguing dynamic with the characters in the world. In the gameplay, you execute different combos with an emphasis on parrying, like Sekiro. However, unlike DMC and Bayonetta, there's barely any aerial combat, besides some basic attacks and a swan dive into the ground that looks like a damn homing attack. The parrying is really well done and fairly forgiving. You can make it easier with your skill points. You can also buy a time machine and go back to the time where Toys R Us existed, go to the baby aisle, buy a pacifier and a diaper with those points because you'll need it after making the parry that much easier. I'm just joking. Dodging and perfect dodging work as well, kind of like Witch Time without slowing the game, allow for some cool follow-up attacks. The guns work like any other third-person shooter, but you only have one weapon at a time with different forms of ammo that can turn into a shotgun, a rocket, and more. I'm not going to spoil the other component to this game because it was rad as hell when I experienced it for the first time. You can explore around the open zones and levels and find some really rad, sexy, and non-PG outfits. And then once you beat the game, you can get the same outfits, but different colors. Ooh. Hard mode is kind of the same thing, but they hit harder, which is kind of lame. I was hoping for some new attacks or something, but most games don't even do that anyway. I don't talk about side missions a lot, but this game has some great side dishes for the lore lovers of this post-apocalyptic world. They aren't fetch quests by any means. It's more like episodic events that Eve will go on. This is what side quests should be in newer games. Kind of like Cyberpunk did, which in my opinion has some of the best side content for a AAA game. This soundtrack. I could sit here and gush about this somber soundtrack so much as a Nier OST lover. It has elements of Nier music, but adds its own spice, such as beautiful Korean vocals. The battle versions of these level themes adds dynamic drums and synths to make the track a lot more upbeat and sometimes very EDM, which I said I don't usually like, however it's done really well here. The EDM can even turn into metalcore to straight orchestral opera. To be honest, this game experiments with a shit ton of genres. The score fits the tone with a sense of hope because the female singers sound like angels themselves parting in the sky with their voice. As corny as that sounds, it's kinda true. The music for the boss battles are almost completely different sometimes, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I have a lot of favorite tracks because it's hard to pick which ones I like the most, and I want to show you the vast majority of genres this soundtrack can cover. Overall, this game isn't just about bazookas. It has an interesting story with deep dives into what it means to be human with a lot of world building. The girl cast is pretty likable, with the side characters have their own little quirks and stories. The lore dissolving the mystery of the game is evenly spread out and well explained with lots of room to breathe. The combat is an amazing blend of Souls-like and action game mechanics, and the soundtrack is absolutely stellar. My first playthrough took about 45 hours because I did all the side content, but if you're someone who just wants to beeline the story, it'll take you about 13 hours. Not going to lie, I pre-ordered this game on a whim because of the main character and it just being a new action game, and it exceeded my expectations, and that's why this is my favorite game that I've played this year.
I feel time is coming soon. With what is left, I sing for you. Oh, did you look above? Heaven knows I'm dreaming of the one I love. Oh, you know I can't get
If you've gotten all the way to this point in the video, I just want to show my gratitude. Thank you so much for tuning in. It was a lot of fun to make, and I am planning on making a bunch of more video essay type videos in the future. However, they won't be this long. Anyways, if you enjoyed my yapping, consider subbing to this channel. If you plan on or already have played these games, then leave a comment. I'd love to have a conversation with you guys. See ya.